Everyone's an Author, Chapter 6. We often read more than we think we do. The question is, what are we reading? Are you reading posts online? Scrolling through articles on your phone? Do you read tweets and Instagram posts from your favorite celebrities? Every form of media, from social media to textbooks, engages us in a form of reading. We got a term here, infotension. The term infotension refers to the mind-machine combination of brain-powered attention skills and computer-powered information filters. As readers in the digital age, we rely on both our critical thinking and the algorithms that curate our online content. It's important to learn how to use them both wisely. So one, we're going to talk about, you guys are going to be sick of hearing me talk about rhetorical situations by the end of this 15-week period. Sorry about that in advance. We're thinking about a rhetorical situation here. Before you start reading, consider your rhetorical situation, the context in which you're engaging with a text. This will help you understand how to approach it. So for one, what's the purpose of your reading? Why are you reading something? Are you reading it to learn something new? Are you reading it to fill an assignment or to prepare for a test? In this case, think about this book. Like maybe you're reading our course textbook because you are trying to learn something new for yourself. Or maybe you're reading it just to fulfill an assignment, which goes back to what I was talking about with my friend who is really bad at doing school, and he just would get overwhelmed all the time. And I don't want that to happen to anybody here, right? So just understand why you're reading something. Are you trying to fulfill an assignment? Or are you just trying to learn something new? Because if you're just trying to learn something new, you might just be reading it more broadly, right? To try to like pick up new skills. If you're trying to fulfill an assignment, you might only have to look at the back couple of pages and find the prompt, right? And then read the sections where the prompt is going to help you, okay? So don't overwhelm yourself to try to do these things. Or you're trying to prepare for a test, in which case you might just be, again, reading for broadness, or you might be rereading things you already read and just underlining things, right? It's important stuff. Again, understanding what the assignment is can help you with all of this. 2, who's the intended audience of the text? Are you part of the group the text is addressing? Again, with the Everyone's an Author textbook, you guys are part of the group, right? They wrote this for us, for students, for teachers. How does knowing the audience shape your interpretation? Well, in this case, again, a textbook is going to be different than like a novel, right? Where a novel is written for enjoyment purposes. This is like an informational book. But just keep that in mind when you are reading basically anything. Like, why did they write this, right? What was the purpose? What's the genre? Are you reading an argumentative essay, a research report, a review or proposal? What's the medium? Is it a book, a film, or a multimedia presentation? I think I might be in the minority, but I personally believe a good movie is almost like reading, right? You can sit down and watch a good movie and get different things out of it, right? You can get different information, and you can walk away with a lot of thoughts about a movie, right? Especially like a really well done one. Maybe not like just a 90-minute action movie starring Arnold. You might not get as much out of that, but some of these more modern movies, right? There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot to think about. So how does the medium affect how you engage with a text? Again, the medium might affect how you engage with something. What's the larger context of the work? What do you already know about the topic? What background knowledge do you need to better understand it? And what sources or resources can you rely on to fill gaps in your understanding? That's funny. This is something I was just talking about the other day with what sources or resources can you rely on to fill gaps in your understanding? I don't like when there's movies I don't understand. I'll watch it and I actually don't understand what's happening. I'll have to look up the Wikipedia article to understand the plot. And I always say that it's a sign that the movie might not be very good if I'm like trying to pay attention and I still don't know what's going on, okay? So sometimes you might have to look at other sources to fill in those gaps, right? To figure things out. And then what's your own stance on the topic? Are you reading as an advocate for a cause, a critic, or an impartial observer? How does your stance influence how you interpret the text? There might be some texts that you don't agree with, right? And that is going to change how you feel about something and how you interpret something. You might just not like how something is, and because of that, you go in with a more critical view of the writing, right? 2, becoming an active and engaged reader. Engagement is key. To develop strong study habits, you need to immerse yourself in the material. Here are some strategies to become a more engaged reader. 1, find your comfort zone. Choose a place where you can focus without distractions. Can be very important, right? If you're trying to learn something, if you get distracted or you're looking at your phone every couple of minutes, it could be a lot harder to pick some of this stuff up, right? If then you just like separate yourself and really try to dig into something, okay? And that goes for me too. I've got to set up places for myself where I know I can get the most work done possible. 2, choose your device wisely. Why some people focus better with an e-reader or computer while others find it easier to read from a physical book. Figure out what works best for you. We got fast versus slow reading. As students, you often have to decide between fast reading and slow reading. Fast reading. For school assignments, it's often helpful to skim for key information that relates directly to your task. This helps you focus on what's most relevant and saves time. Go back to I keep using my best friend as an example. I'll have to apologize to him later, but again, he's slow reading everything, right? He's like, he doesn't know what the assignment is, and he slow reads the pages, and then he gets to the end, and he's not sure what he's going to write his discussion post on, because he read the whole thing, and he's trying to retain some of it, but he didn't annotate, and now he's read this entire chapter, and maybe it just went in one ear and out the other, right? So it's important, maybe go back, fast read maybe, look at the assignment and then go and read, right? And figure out what you have to do, like what is the assignment, what's the task, versus slow reading, which is what I'm talking about with my friend. This method involves reading everything carefully, but it may lead you to spend time on sections that aren't as critical to your goals, right? Not everything is designed equally. Again, strike a balance between fast and slow reading, depending on the importance of the text and how much time you have. There's a million ways to get this kind of stuff done, so just keep that in mind. Reading unfamiliar or difficult texts. Difficult or unfamiliar texts can be intimidating, but with the right approach, they become manageable. Here are some tips. Focus on what you understand first. Start by reading the parts you find easier and then go back to sections you don't understand. Start small. Take small sections at a time instead of reading larger chunks. I really like this one. I think that if you do go through and read small bits of material, things that you understand, and think about it for a while, then you can go back and read more after that, right? Sometimes it takes a while to think and process information. Use summaries. Many textbooks and articles have chapter summaries. Read these first to get the gist of the text before diving into the details. Reflection on your reading process. The next time you're assigned to read something online, pay attention to your reading process. Do you read straight through or stop frequently? Do you take notes or just absorb the information? What do you do when you encounter something you don't understand? And how long can you maintain focus before needing a break? And then compare this process to reading a print text. Do you engage with printed material differently? Is your focus stronger with a physical book than with online material? And what conclusions can you draw about your reading habits across different mediums? By reflecting on these differences, you can make adjustments to your reading strategies and improve how you process information. Understanding how to read rhetorically and how to engage with text more deeply will improve both your comprehension and your ability to use sources effectively in your writing. Remember, every text presents a rhetorical situation, and your approach to reading will shape how you interpret and respond to it. Now we're talking about Chapter 7, Annotating, Summarizing, and Responding. Reading strategies that work for you. The book suggests you've already developed strategies that help you read effectively, and I completely agree. Whether you're reading for pleasure or for an assignment, we all have methods that work best in certain situations. Let's explore some of these strategies and see how they can enhance your understanding and retention of what you need. What strategies help you read in your ideal environment? Personally, I prefer reading hard copy books when I'm studying for academic purposes. There's something about physically flipping through the pages that helps me stay focused. I like listening to lo-fi music when I study. It gives me a peaceful, productive atmosphere that keeps me calm and focused while reading and writing. And if you guys had me in a live class, I'd probably, you would see I use that in class sometimes to keep people focused. Some lo-fi music or music that is not loud or over encumbering, but just something mellow that keeps you focused and keeps things quiet, okay? When it comes to annotation, I find underlining useful on the first read through. It helps highlight key points. I'm also a fan of doodling, which I've recently talked about. Sometimes drawing while reading can help me visualize and remember the content better, especially if I can write a good joke in there with one of my doodles. I'll definitely remember that a lot better in the future. Annotating, a critical skill for engaged reading. Annotating goes beyond just highlighting lines. It's about interacting with the text and making it your own. Annotation should align with your purpose for reading. Ask yourself, why am I reading this? What do I need to get out of it? This will guide the way you annotate. Whether you're marking key quotes for future papers, taking notes of themes for discussion, or just summarizing key points for your own understanding, I'm going to point out here that in the future, when you're writing a research papers or you're writing a paper and you find a quote that you might like, I personally like to have a whole document with quotes on it that I like and the website where I got it from. So when it comes back to writing the actual paper in the final draft, I have all the information I need to make that citation and have the quote. That way you're not like having 40 browser tabs open and you're like, which one was it on? It can be a problem sometimes, and there's nothing worse than losing something that you thought was really great for a paper or really made a point and then having to go back. I think if you guys could learn anything from me here, it'd be how to save time on some of these assignments and get them done quickly without being overwhelmed, right? I think that's kind of the most important, even beyond being a great writer or whatever. Just understanding some of these tips and tricks will help you out. Think, question, and respond as you go. Mark passages where you agree, disagree, or feel curious. Ask yourself questions about what you're reading. For me, it's always easier when I disagree with something to remember it, right? Just be like, I just don't agree with this. I'll have to write a note about that, right? It's like, what's this person thinking writing this? It's always easier that way than just something you agree with and you just take for granted. Highlight key quotes that could be useful for future assignments or mark specific points that might relate to larger themes in the course. Think about purpose, previewing the text. Before diving in, take a moment to think about the purpose of the text and how you'll approach it. Why are you reading the text? Is it for an assignment, to prepare for a test, to learn something new? What do you need to do with the text? Do you need to analyze it, summarize it, respond to a prompt? When you preview a text, you should 1. Identify what you already know about the topic. 2. Check the authors or sponsors. Are they credible or reliable? And 3, look at the title and any available abstract or summaries to get a sense of the text's focus. 4, scan the heading to get a basic idea of the text structure. And 5, initial response. How do you feel after previewing the text? Excited, confused, neutral? Understand the text, break it down. Once you've previewed it, it's time to really dig in. Here's how you can understand the text more deeply. What's the text's thesis or main claim? Is the argument clear and supported by sufficient evidence? Again, with our textbook here, every chapter is broken down into a different section, right? And then within that section, there's subsections. So there's always a thesis or main claims or things to learn in every chapter, and understanding what that is before you even go into it is a good way to be. Reasons and evidence. What reasons does the author provide, and is the evidence credible? Not every author is credible, right? With the internet, there's more credible authors. There's also a lot of uncredible authors, right? People that you can't listen to and that are trying to mislead and trick us, right? So it's very important to keep that in mind when you read anything. It's not as clear cut as it may seem sometimes. 3, surprises and skepticism. Did anything surprise you or raise doubts? It's okay to be critical as you read. Question the author's assumptions. Not everybody's right, even if they write something for a major publication, right? That's just their opinion, and you might not agree with their opinion, and they might not be found to be right later on, right? 4, counter arguments. Does the text acknowledge or refute opposing viewpoints? If so, how effectively does it do so? I mentioned earlier, I went to law school, so I find it very important to write counter arguments. If you write an argumentative paper, you should be including the counter arguments no matter what, right? Because if you don't include a counter argument, it's like you didn't think about it, okay? You didn't think about this whole other viewpoint. Even if you disagree with that viewpoint, you got to acknowledge it exists, okay? And I think that can be helpful in everyday life, right? I mean, everybody argues about things every day, but if you don't think about the other person's viewpoint and how you don't agree with it, and then really verbalize that even in your own mind, it just can be a helpful thing to do, okay? Even just in conversation, just think about why you disagree with something. Think about the counter argument to something. It just can't be, I used to teach high school. I know what never worked at high school is like, because I said so is never a good answer, right? Just think about why something is no. Think about why you need a counter argument to something, and that works a lot better than just no, right? So it's my personal experience anyways and how I feel about that. 5 key terms. Highlight unfamiliar terms and take a moment to look at them up if needed. If you don't understand a word, again, the internet's great. We can just Google that word, right? We can Google what we don't understand pretty quickly and hopefully figure stuff out. And then if there's visual elements, if the text includes images, charts, or other visuals, make sure you understand how they support or relate to the text. A lot of these books have charts, right? Charts and images. Audience and author. Who is the author addressing? Who's the intended audience? How does that shape the way the text is written? What do you already know about this audience? 2, what do you know about the author? Is the author a credible source or an authority on the subject? Well, clearly if they wrote a textbook, they probably are, right? We got somebody that wrote a textbook, went through all that information, and these textbooks are, no one person wrote these, right? Many people wrote these over a collaborative period, so the textbooks are pretty good. But if you're looking online, it might not even be a credible author. You might not be somewhere where, for example, if you look at news on Facebook or whatever, that might not be real. It might be from some publication that doesn't have any credentials on the subject, right? Consider the author's stance and how they approach the subject. Are they neutral, biased, or advocating for a specific perspective? And what's their style and tone? Is it formal, informal, persuasive, or analytical? Look at the language choices to help determine this. Someone that writes analytically and it's argumentative might not even be trying to prove their argument to you. They might just be giving you the data and letting you create your own idea on the subject, okay? Reacting to the text, your response matters. While reading, pay attention to your own reactions. Do you agree or disagree with something? Mark sections where you strongly agree or disagree with the author. Are there any surprises? Note any claims that surprise you and why. Confusing passages. Highlight areas that are unclear and make a note to revisit or ask for clarification. Counterarguments. As you read, think about how you might argue against the author's points. Or personal connections. If a passage reminds you of a memory or a prior experience, jot that down. It can make the meeting more relatable and memorable. And remembering things makes other things easier, right? If you can remember some of these things. Summarizing, keep it concise. When summarizing, the goal is to distill the text's key points into a few sentences. Be concise and factual, sticking to about 100 words. Focus on main ideas and leave out minor details. Summaries help you quickly recall the important elements of a text when revisiting it later. And then responding. It's something you already do. You may not realize it, but you've already responded to content regularly, whether it's commenting on Instagram posts, leaving reviews, or replying to text messages. Responding in an academic setting isn't much different. The goal is to express your thoughts, reactions, and critiques. In conclusion, annotating, summarizing, and responding are powerful tools not only to help you understand what you read, but also enhance your ability to analyze and engage critically with texts. As you practice these skills, you'll develop stronger reading habits that will serve you in both academic and everyday settings. Chapter 8, How to Spot Fake News. Before believing or sharing a story, investigate the source. Take a moment to click away from the story and look at the site. We have questions to ask. What's the site's mission or agenda? Is the contact information legitimate? Does the site have a reliable history of accurate reporting? Websites with vague missions or sensationalized language should raise red flags. Check the author. Do a quick search on the author's name. Are they a real person? Are they qualified to write about the subject? And then we have questions to consider. Does the author have credentials in the field? Can you find other articles by this author or a reputable website? You can check the date. Make sure the article is current. Old news stories can sometimes be reposted, giving the impression they're a part of a new ongoing event when they're not. I think that this is one of the most important things to keep in mind when you're writing a research paper is how current the news is. This is, personally, this has happened to me many times where I've looked up something and the information has changed within the last year. So you might be looking at an article that's 2 or 3 years old, and that's just no longer current information. Things change so quickly these days that you might find an article that's a year newer that is completely different than the old one. So always keep that in mind. Check the date of things. Ask yourself, is this article from months or years ago? Is it being shared as though it's recent? And does the date make a difference to the story's relevance? Yeah, sometimes the date makes a difference, right? There might be new updates, new developments in a story that make all the difference in the world. Check your own biases. Recognize that your own belief can affect how you interpret a story. It's essential to pause and reflect before you accept or dismiss the information. Ask yourself, does this story confirm something I already believe? Am I more likely to share this because it aligns with my opinions, even if it's not verified? This is something I did disagree with the book on a little bit, is it really says that we can all check our biases before we go in, or you can have non-bias, but even writing that as bias, like there's almost no way to avoid. Everybody's got their own internal bias and how we feel about things, and even if you can leave that at the door and look at something uncritically for a while, or like look at it from a different perspective, you're still going to have that original perspective, right? It's impossible. You can't just throw that away. It's not really possible, in my opinion. But I mean, you can look at it with a different filter, but at the end of the day, when you go back and think about it again, you'll probably be thinking the same thing you thought before, right? It's read beyond the headline. Headlines are often written to grab attention, sometimes using exaggerated or misleading language to get clicks. Always read the entire article to understand the full story. Questions to consider. Is the headline designed to provoke a strong emotional reaction? Does the body of the article match the claims made in the headline? 6. Supporting sources. Click on the links. If the article links to supporting sources, follow those links to verify the claims. Make sure the evidence actually backs up what's being said. Tips. Do the supporting links come from reputable or well-known outlets? Are the links sourced accurate and in line with the claims being made? You feel pretty safe if it says .gov, right, or .org sometimes, but maybe if it's just a .com, it might not be a reliable news source, right? You just keep that in mind. There's so many opportunities for fake news, and we're going to talk about that more in 1 minute. Is it a joke? If a story seems too bizarre or outlandish, it might be a satire or a joke, right? If it's from The Onion, it's not real. It just is a satire, and that happens often. Be sure to verify the site and the author. Many satire sites have disclaimers indicating they're for entertainment. Always check the about page or the tone of the website. Ask the experts. When in doubt, consult fact-checking websites like Snopes or PolitiFact, or ask for a librarian. Experts can help you verify the credibility of information. Fact-checking sites often keep running lists of viral misinformation. Why does fake news spread so easily? Research shows that negative stories, especially those that trigger strong emotions like anger or fear, are more likely to gain traction online than positive news. This is because they tend to generate more clicks, which leads to higher ad revenue for websites. It's important to keep that in mind, right? People that write news are writing to make money, right? They're writing to keep people reading, and bad stories get people reading, right? Get people to click. So sometimes things are just sensationalized, and it might not be true. Be wary of sensational or overly negative news. It may be designed to manipulate your emotion and encourage sharing for profit. And then we have confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency to seek out or favor information that aligns with what we already believe, while ignoring or rejecting information that contradicts our beliefs. Why it's important. Confirmation bias can be blind to the truth and make us more susceptible to fake news. It's essential to actively challenge your own biases by considering multiple perspectives and sources. Conclusion. In a world of constant information flow, it's essential to practice critical thinking when evaluating the news. By considering the source, checking the author and date, and being mindful of your own biases, you can better protect yourself from falling for fake news. Make sure to read beyond the headlines, verify supporting sources, and consult experts when in doubt. Most importantly, always be aware of confirmation bias and strive to keep an open mind. Key terms for English 101. The purpose of this lecture introduces and explains essential terms for English 101. These terms are the building blocks of academic reading, writing, and analysis. By the end of this class, you guys should be able to define these concepts. Maybe not without the help of this list that I've given you, but you should be able to think about it a little bit more easily. Recognize them in text and use them in your own writing. Our first word is rhetoric, and we have a rhetorical essay in this class. So the definition of rhetoric: the art of effective or persuasive speaking or writing. The core idea is about crafting messages that appeal to emotions, pathos, logic, logos, or ethics, credibility, ethos. I first learned about these ideas in philosophy classes in college. So finding them in kind of English, it was kind of surprising at first because I personally see them more as philosophical concepts as I do English concepts. But essentially, the idea of rhetorical essay or this idea of rhetoric is you want to make an argument that is crafted very well. So I always like to talk about, we're talking about appeal to emotions. Has everybody seen the commercials, like the sad commercials with the dogs? You know what I mean? Like you're watching the TV and all of a sudden like these dogs they're really sad looking, come up and they're asking you for money. That's where we're appealing to emotions, okay? That's pathos. And I only bring that one up because I'm like, that's the best one for me. That's just is like they're really getting you. You know what I mean? They really want you to donate your money, your time, or whatever, and they've got like, but you know what I'm talking about. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about emotion, okay? Logic. I personally, that's why, like, you know, if I'm gonna write a paper, I'm typically talking about like the logical reasons why something should or should not be, and I think that's a lot easier for us to understand, right? It's like these are the reasons why via statistics or data. One thing is one way or another, right? And then we got ethics and credibility. So credibility, we'll talk quite a bit about that in this class, but it's like your credibility as an author. You don't want to listen to somebody like misinformation over here who is just trying to pump out articles for everybody all the time, okay? We're trying to really be credible writers, and the more credible you are, I talk about this a lot in my speech class, but the more people are willing to listen to you about everything, right? If you're very credible. So that's the third idea here. So we got examples. A political speech might appeal to pathos, emotion, with powerful stories. A science article might appeal to logos, facts, and data. And a charity advertisement appeals to ethos, credibility, and trust. Why it matters in English 101. This helps students understand how writers and speakers persuade, not just what they say. So this is going to help you be persuasive in things, right? It's going to help you be persuasive in your writing. Reflection. Definition. Thinking deeply about your own writing, learning, or experiences. And I know we've talked about this a little bit already today, but I personally think you're reflecting all the time, right? Just like you're responding all the time. Like you guys will probably be after this class, I don't know what else you have for the rest of the day, but you'll probably think about some of the things I said, whether it's intentionally or not, right? You'll think about some of the things that resonated with you the most and some of the things that I said that maybe you didn't agree with or didn't resonate with you as much, but that's just reflection, right? And I think that's a really important learning tool and a learning strategy, just to reflect on things that you've talked about and you've thought about over the course of a day, and just really kind of helps you remember some of those things. The core idea, reflection allows you to notice growth in areas for improvement. For example, after writing an essay, ask what worked well. What do I need to change next time? Why this matters, it encourages metacognition, or students become aware of themselves as writers. For metacognition, we're talking about thinking, right? You're thinking about your own thoughts and you're advancing your own thoughts and your own ideas. Then we got synthesis. Combination of ideas from differing sources into a new cohesive argument. The core idea, it's not just summarizing, it's weaving ideas together. For example, an essay on climate change might blend science data, news articles, and personal stories into one argument. Why it matters? College writing often requires students to enter a conversation with multiple perspectives. Essentially here, for synthesis, we're asking you to, let's say I provided you like 5 different articles on climate change, and I asked you to write me a summary of that. That would be a synthesis of that, right? I want you to synthesize these articles and give me one cohesive idea of something, okay? Then we got critical analysis, careful examination, and evaluation of a text. The core idea, break a text into parts, questions, assumptions, identities, strengths, and weaknesses. Instead of just summarizing a news article, ask, what's the author's bias? What evidence is missing? This is important. If you read something and you don't agree with it, you could ask yourself, like, why don't I agree? Like, what information would have to be there for me to agree with something, okay? Why it matters. Builds deeper understanding and avoids passive reading. You want to build deeper understanding of things, and you want to read things not passively, like what we were talking about in the earlier sections, right? You want to read things and annotate them and understand what you're reading and why you're reading it. For a discourse community, our next, A group of people with shared goals, language, and communication practices. Examples, academics, which is what we are here, gamers, lawyers, social media groups. Anytime you're part of a community and a community that converses about specific ideas, right? Core idea. Each group uses specific language and genres to communicate. Why it matters. Students are joining the discourse community of academia, which has its own rules, essays, citations, and formal language. We got rhetorical situations, which I've already mentioned today. You'll be sick of hearing me talk about, right, by the end of the course. The context that influences a text, audience, purpose, medium, and circumstances. The core idea. Writers adjust their messages depending on the situation. An example, a speech at a graduation ceremony is different from a tweet on social media, even if the message is similar. Why it matters. It helps students adapt their writing to different settings. So if you have a different audience, you might write something differently than just for me, right? If you're writing a narrative and you're just writing it for a friend that already knew a lot about your life, you might not have to include some of the things you'd have to include for your professor that doesn't know as much about you, right? So that's your rhetorical situation. You're just thinking about all the reasons why you're doing something and the reason why you're writing something. The audience. The definition. The intended reader or listener. The core idea. Knowing the audience changes tone, style, examples. For example, writing for a professor versus writing for a group of friends, what we were just talking about, right? It might be different if you're sending a professional email versus just an email to a friend, okay? Or something of that nature. Why it matters. Audience awareness leads to more effective communication. For the purpose. Definition. The reason for writing, to inform, persuade, entertain, or express. Core idea, purpose shapes content and structure. Example, a news article informs, a commercial persuades, and a short story entertains. Why it matters, students should always ask, why am I writing this? And what's the assignment, right? And we're talking about context. Definition, the circumstances around a text, time, place, culture, events. Core ideas. Context influences both how a text is written and how it's read. Example, a speech during the civil rights movement versus similar speech today. Why it matters. Students learn that reading is shaped by setting and history. These terms from rhetoric to tone form the foundation of how we read, write, and think critically. Use this vocabulary when discussing texts and writing assignments. Understanding these concepts gives you the power over how you communicate and how you interpret others' communication. Now, this is something that I think is really important to good writing, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily a pet peeve of mine. I just say that I think if you focus on this in your writing, that you will find that your writing really soars. It's something that everybody can work on, and it's not something I learned until I was in law school, and I'm kind of shocked that's not something that they focus on earlier, and it's it and other pronouns. First off, what is a pronoun? A pronoun's a word that takes place of a noun in a sentence. Instead of repeating the same noun over and over, pronouns make sentences easier to read and less repetitive. They can refer to people, places, things, or ideas. Common pronouns includes words like he, she, it, they, we, and you. Instead of saying Maria went to Maria's house because Maria forgot Maria's keys, you can say Maria went to her house because she forgot her keys. Pronouns can also be used to show possession. For example, his, her, their, and to refer to someone without naming them directly. Someone, everyone, nobody. Why pronouns can be problematic in academic writing. Pronouns are useful in everyday communication because they make sentences less repetitive. However, in academic writing, the goal is often clarity and precision, and pronouns can sometimes create confusion or vagueness. The issue of vagueness. Pronouns make writing vague. When you use pronouns like he, she, they, it, or this, it's not always clear what noun the pronoun is referring to. If a research paper, if I say, this is important for the study, what does this refer to? The method, the findings, a specific concept? Readers have to guess. Academic writing should be precise. Instead of forcing your reader to figure out what you're talking about, it's better to repeat that subject clearly. Repetition for clarity. In academic writing, clarity is key. While repeating nouns may seem redundant, it actually serves a purpose, making sure your reader fully understands what you're discussing. For example, vague. The experiment was conducted, and it was difficult. For clearness. The experiment was conducted and the data collection process was difficult. Do you notice how the second sentence is clearer? Instead of using the pronoun it, the specific part of the experiment that was challenging is named. Pronouns cause ambiguity. Ambiguity means that it's unclear who or what the pronoun is referring to. For example, the researchers and participants discussed the findings, but they did not agree. Who does they refer to? The researchers, the participants, both? To avoid this ambiguity, it's better to restate the specific group or idea you're talking about. Exceptions. When pronouns work. There are times when pronouns are acceptable in academic writing, especially when the subject is clear. If you've already established a noun in a sentence, it's obvious when the pronoun refers to, using it can make the writing smoother. For example, the theory of evolution has been debated for centuries. It continues to influence biological research. In this case, it clearly refers to the theory of evolution, so the pronoun's effective without creating confusion. For strong academic writing, the less vague your writing is, the stronger it becomes. Your goal is to communicate ideas clearly and confidently, and relying too much on pronouns can weaken that clarity. Focus on specificity. Instead of assuming your reader knows what you're referring to, explicitly name it. This shows that you have full control over your arguments and makes your writing more credible. In conclusion, in academic writing, precision is more valuable than simplicity. While pronouns may help with sentence flow, overusing them can lead to vagueness and ambiguity. By making a habit of restating key nouns, you help to ensure that your writing is clear, strong, and easy to follow. So the APA formatting guide. APA is the American Psychological Association style. It's one of the most common writing formats, and it's used in college courses. It helps make sure your writing is clear, consistent, and credible. We're going to use this guide as a quick reference when preparing your essays, discussion posts, and research papers. I think this is something that trips students up a lot of the time, is like just getting the formatting correctly. That's part of the whole point of this course, right, is to make sure you guys can get formatting done correctly. And I think, again, it's easier than ever to get some of this done. So if you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And if you look here in the back of that, there's all the things that you need. So general formatting, use an easy to read font. It's going to be 12 points, but typically it's Times New Roman at 12-point font. Spacing, you should double space your entire paper, including the reference page. Margins, it should be 1-inch margins on all sides, and a lot of places do this automatically, right? This is not something that you need to do on your own. Page numbers, top right corner of every page. It's a little bit, I'm used to them being on the top bottom right corner, but we're switching from MLA to APA here, so it's the top right corner of every page. Indentation, indent the first line of every paragraph by 0.5 inches, so you just hit the tab button, and that should give you the indentation you need. Title pages for essays, centered double space, middle of the page. Your title page should have the title of the paper, your name, the institution, in this example, Washington County Community College, the course name and number, English 100, this would be the hybrid or the Zoom version, instructor's name, Nick Johnson, and the due date, the date that you're passing it in. In-text citations, when you use someone else's ideas, summarize, or quote, you must give credit. So you could have the basic format, the author, the year, the direct quote, author, year, page number. For example, paraphrase, social media can negatively impact sleep quality, Smith 2019. If you got the direct quote, blue light exposure delays melatonin release, Smith 2019, page 22. If there are two authors, you could put Smith and Lee 2021. If there are three or more authors, you put Smith et al. Comma 2022. And then there should be a reference page. The reference list goes at the end of your paper on a separate page. It's titled References, centered in bold. This should be alphabetical order by author's last name. Double space with hanging indent. The first line flush left, the rest intended for 0.5 inches. Again, you can see this. I've provided it all for you. Headings. APA uses headings to organize sections of a paper. So you have headings, centered, bold, title case. Common mistakes to avoid: forgetting the year in in-text citations, not using in-text citations with the reference lists, and using the wrong title capitalization. APA uses sentence case for article titles, title case for journal names. Forgetting the hanging indent in the reference page. Here are some quick tips. Always cite ideas that are not your own. Use the Purdue OWL APA guide or the APA manual for tricky cases. And when in doubt, ask, Can the reader find the source from my reference? If yes, you're good.